We're going to run into some food issues with farmers disappearing. Farmers are retiring. They're selling their properties. Their kids don't want to do it. A lot of people, they see stuff in the shelves of the grocery store, but they don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and it's only getting worse.
Not only the food you're eating, it's the food's food. And that's really what is making the nutritional value of what we're eating. What's up, guys? I'm Chris. Today I am here at Olivor Heritage Farms in Tampa, Florida, here with Farmer John. He's going to take us around, answer some questions, and show us all about the place. All right, so they're processing the chicken right now. We're going to go ahead in that freezer and take a look. How many chickens do you do today?
For the summer, we backed off a little bit. You know, we adjust our numbers depending on how much we put in the freezer. It's interesting at different times of the year. You know, you'll have people want more beef or want more chicken.
Yeah.
Obviously, the economy plays a part too in what people can afford, summer vacations and things like that.
Yeah.
It just depends. So we do our best to kind of navigate those fluctuations, but whatever 130 and 90
Gotcha.
adds up to be.
220.
Can't do that math off the top of my head, I apologize. It's a running joke that you can't be a farmer and do math.
Yeah. It's very satisfying to watch this process, though.
I try and make it look easy. The differences between the birds, I would say the biggest difference is going to be the feed. They're raised exactly the same. They're all pastured outside, sunshine, happy birds. Sometimes people will come in and ask that, were the chickens happy? Yes, they were happy.
That's what matters most.
Chickens are very simple creatures.
Yeah.
They're very easy to please. As long as they have food,
Yeah.
they're good. So we have the antibiotic free. Again, that's why we use the ABF terminology as like our shorthand. That is going to be a locally made feed. It is non-GMO, so that nothing in it's genetically modified, right? So even if you get a little bit of corn and soy in there, it's going to be more or less clean, right? It's a whole product. It's a little bit cheaper, and it provides a more affordable quality product for someone who maybe wants something better than the grocery store. They've got a couple kids to feed, but they don't want to pay $23.99 a pound for chicken breast. So they can make it more flexible.
Yeah.
Again, cutting up a whole bird is a great way to make your budget go a lot further.
Yep.
This skill right here is invaluable. It can turn a regular chicken into a much more higher dollar item.
Do you think that the corn soy-free tastes different?
Yes, I do, actually. Corn makes something sweet, right? So sometimes the ABF bird will be a little bit sweeter, but the corn and soy-free has a very clean flavor.
Yeah.
They oftentimes are a little bit leaner, don't have quite as much fat. So again, it depends on what you're looking for. Personally, fat's flavor.
Yeah.
So I love a good fatty bird, but you can't deny the freshness of the soy-free, corn-free.
I'd like to do a blind taste test.
I also, though, kind of have a background in it.
Yeah, so you would probably be able to tell
better
than me.
I grew up on even milking our own cows and raising our own beef, so you kind of learned those differences. So it's an acquired taste, but I think someone can tell the difference. Definitely between store-bought chicken.
I mean, I always go for the corn and soy-free just because I think it's a little bit cleaner. But that's good to know that the corn and soy is still like non-GMO and all that.
Yeah.
Because that's what people think of when they think of the corn and soy, is that it's loaded with the GMOs and everything.
Yeah, like that's inherently what people run away from when you think about corn and soy, is it's such a broken down product that you don't want to put that into your body. Yeah,
because I mean in the supermarket it's probably corn and soy that's loaded with GMOs, right?
Yeah, that's kind of why we provide the differences. We do have people who have allergies, they can't eat soy. We find that a lot in our eggs. There's a lot of people who were like, we couldn't eat anyone else's eggs, but you know, my kid can eat yours, or these don't make me sick, or I don't have an allergic reaction. So that's always cool to see. You know, we love being able to say, yes, you can eat our product. It's clean. It is actually clean, and you can tell the difference pretty immediately.
Yeah. Even the color of the yolks too is different too.
Color of the yolks is super interesting. So I have a little bit of a pet peeve on that subject.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
People freak out over pale yolks. Corn makes things yellow.
Yeah.
So when you oftentimes have a yolk that's really, really yellow, it can be, not always, this is not exclusive, can be a sign of corn. Most farmers who do corn-free, soy-free eggs, when you get a really dark yolk in the grocery store, they feed them marigold petals. So if you left that chicken to naturally go about its day, and you're gonna have a paler yolk because you're not gonna have corn in it. There's nothing to dye the yolk.
Well, that's what I've heard, is that these big farms now figure that out just because it's a selling point, and they just pump it full of the marigold or whatever.
It's all, people buy with their eyes, right?
Yeah.
So they want to see that. There's a guy, I think he's even local here in Tampa. He feeds his chickens peppers, and it makes them like a deep, deep red, and then he makes pasta out of it. So he has a very unique pasta because it's a deep color, because he uses that different yolk.
It's interesting to know, because a lot of people say, like, they swear by the color and just the color alone.
You can't tell by the color.
Yeah.
You got to tell by the flavor and the texture.
Good to know.
You know, if a chicken's outside and they're getting a wide variety of bugs, which, you know, it depends on how much competition that chicken has.
Yeah.
And again, if you're keeping your pastures clean, you're probably not going to have as high percentage of bugs. You're not going to have roaches crawling around. Chickens love that. It's good for them.
Yeah.
Throwing chickens protein is a great thing. You know, a lot of people do their scrap to venison bones, or even just, chickens are carnivores.
Yeah.
They will eat anything they can get their little beaks into. Tiny dinosaurs for sure. They love it. So it gets them high in calcium, and that's something that can enrich a yolk color, right? Because protein it's just nutrient rich, right? So that is going to produce a deeper color. But I would say taste and texture and how you feel after you eat it. Those are going to be your signifiers, right?
Yeah.
That's what's going to tell you the actual quality.
Now, are the eggs and the chicken meat from the same place?
Yes. Yep, so they're all raised on the same property. We try to have more of a relationship with the people that we work with, as opposed to like a business partnership.
Yep.
We used to do all of this on site from day one here. And as we grew, kind of have time to run a farm or run a business.
Yeah.
So we had to learn to find other families, to find other people in the community who wanted to do this the way we wanted to do it. And I think that's really made a huge difference in the quality of our product and our service to you guys as well. Being able to have the education and the relationships and talking to people, and to give that field to counter service of like, no, I've seen the birds, I've raised them. This was my background growing up. I mean, education is a huge part of what we do, because how are you going to know if no one tells you, and no one's genuinely trying to tell you, right? Like, not just trying to sell you a product, not just trying to make you think it looks good, but they actually want you to know what the truth is.
So it's small, like family farms that you get it from? Yeah.
Yep, they're their own individual LLCs, but they kind of operate under our umbrella, more or less. Yeah, they just, people in the community, again, as we found who wanted to step up and who are going to make a clean, consistent product. It's important when you're doing this many birds on the ground that you have somewhere for them to go.
Yeah. So do you have a similar process to the beef, like in here, that you do, or
Yeah, it's a little simpler. So you get the primal in, and you, depending on the steak or you know, what you're cutting out of it, it can be more or less complicated.
Gotcha.
But something simple like a strip or a ribeye, you're basically just cutting down.
Yeah. I've been to many farms, and this is probably the best meat I've had.
We work hard to make sure it is the best. And we do feel it shows in the quality of what you're getting. The birds in the grocery store are just very soft. These were done, I think, 2 days ago, and they've been on ice since then. They're just very firm. Like if I was to do this to a store-bought chicken and shake it, it would just peel off the bone.
Gotcha.
You know, there's no tension to the meat. There's no strength in it. I was actually just talking to a gentleman. He like has a fear of like chicken sitting out too long, right? And getting you sick.
Yeah.
So USDA standard is 4 hours regardless. But when you buy a chicken from the grocery store, chicken period, it has been processed. It's been shipped from the processing plant to a cutting plant. It's been cut, then it's been packed in a bulk package, and then it's been shipped again to your grocery store, and then it's been held in storage, and then it's been put into a packing, and then it's been put out on a shelf, and then it's been put in your cart and driven home, and then it's been put out on your counter or in your refrigerator, right? That's a lot more handling. This chicken has been from the field to the cone, from the cone to the ice, I got it out of the ice. It's on my board, goes in that bucket, goes in that sealer, goes in those crates, it goes in my fridge to you. And that's, we opened this afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's been out for 6 hours from the ice that
Gotcha.
it was put in from the field. The likelihood of this getting you sick is so much lower, and it's just such a different texture.
Yeah, the chicken from the grocery store just grosses me out now.
Yeah, like you would be able to, like I can pull this off the bone, but like that takes quite, it's stuck on there.
And that's just probably a sign of a healthier animal.
And it hasn't aged.
Yeah.
So the aging process will make things more tender. It's very important on beef. You know, we think old beef is bad, and sometimes, as long as it's been aged safely and properly, oh my word, it's so good.
Oh.
Beef, it needs to age.
Yeah.
If you get, like chicken's different, if you got a piece of cow right off rip, it would be so chewy.
Gotcha.
It is not good.
Yeah.
This is really common, it's bruising, but that does not mean the chicken is sick. It doesn't mean it was ill-treated.
Yeah.
They can get very lazy.
Gotcha.
They're also very fat oftentimes, and then they lay down, and they will actually get an internal bruise. Anytime we see something like this, we will clear it out. Obviously, we're not going to sell that.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean the bird was ill-treated or something. So if you do
just-
come across that,
yeah.
it's fairly uncommon. Sometimes too, it can depend on the chicks that you get, right? The actual genetic strain of that bird, because of how they breed them. These guys are pretty big, so sometimes I can salvage them. I always check for texture is my big denominator.
How do you check that?
So you can actually feel it. So this guy feels a little tough compared to like this. You can even see how much softer that is, right? Where this doesn't move the same. It's
Gotcha.
kind of bouncy almost.
Yeah.
So it means this is going to be tougher, meaning it's been kind of affected. So I'll put this in dog food because there's nothing, right? It's not sick. There's nothing wrong with it. A dog would happily eat this, and it's going to be ground. But that's what we do with it because we don't like to waste product.
Yeah.
So we do save anything that's broken or subpar. We use it for dog food because the dogs love it. It's healthy for them.
So how do you make the dog food?
We just chop it up and run it through a grinder.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, comes out bone and all, and they love it. They get everything in there. We throw some organ meat in.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
one thing I haven't seen is any of the organs, like the chicken livers or anything like that.
So we get those in bags already. So these are already slaughtered, right?
Gotcha.
Slaughtering
Yeah.
is the process from alive to dead and cleaning anything on the inside to the outside. And then butchering is actually the process of taking something in one piece and making it many. That is all done post-delivery.
Gotcha.
As I said, we used to do all that in-house.
Yeah. Do you sell a lot of the organs now?
We do.
Yeah.
Gizzards are kind of tough to sell. We can usually keep it up on hearts and livers.
It's very trendy now, the liver, the heart.
For sure. Yeah, it is. And they're very good for you.
Yeah, they are.
It's definitely something
The
that's
texture is not my favorite, but
I'm not a liver girly.
I do a lot of the ground blends where it's like 10%, 20% organ meat. So then you barely taste it. Forested pork, tell me like what that is all about.
So probably one of my favorite things about pork and it being forested, right? Even just from being outdoors, if you know a little bit about the biology of how bodies work, it is amazing the difference. Because pigs, they don't sweat, right? Kind of like a dog, they pant. What happens when we sweat? We get rid of toxins out of our skin, right? So if you are a pig and you're not outside and you're not getting sunshine, which is what? Vitamin D, which is a huge part of your immune system, and detoxing. So that sunshine actually kills off a lot of bad stuff in their system. What happens, where do you store bad stuff in your body when you don't? Fat, right? So if you're eating all that fat from a pig that has not been outside, what are you eating? You're eating all of their stored toxins. So no wonder you feel crappy when you eat that and it's got a terrible flavor. So eating pork that has been outside, the sunshine's on their skin, they're absorbing that vitamin D, their immune system's working properly, they're detoxing properly, it's gonna make a massive difference in the quality. Breeding and genetics can make a big difference too. Again, using a heritage breed and something else that's not gonna be kind of genetically modified to give you a big loin, big hams, a long loin, right? Kind of like dog breeding, they kind of breed in some weird stuff. So a heritage breed makes a big difference.
And the composition of the fat is different as well, right?
Completely different. And one of the cool things about fat, right? This goes for butter, beef, pork, anything like that. your body's a filter, right? So when you have a whole fat, your body knows how to filter that out because it's not been homogenized, it's not been broken down, it's not been genetically modified. Your body knows what to do with it. It's got a sieve in it that catches all the bad stuff. So it can catch that whole fat, take out the nutrients that it needs, and move it through your system. If that's been pre-broken down, it goes through the sieve. It's gonna get stuck.
Yeah.
Who wants that? So raw butter, you know, we get not as much now. I think there's more education out there on that. Whole fats versus like seed oil.
Yep.
You know,
Very popular.
There's a lot more things on that, but people were afraid of high fat butter.
Yep.
And it's like, well, your brain needs it. Eat some and it might make more sense.
Yeah, now they eat the fake butter and it's disgusting.
It scares me.
It's super interesting though about the pork with getting the sunshine. It's better for their immune system, less toxins that you're eating.
That's what people don't take into consideration is, again, if the body is in a place where it can properly dispose of corn or soy or anything bad in it, you're not gonna have the same result.
Yeah.
So care, and you know, it's like with us, right? If you work outside and you're sweating or you're working out, you're gonna feel better, which is going to make your body function better versus, you know, I don't know, working an office job.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one
I'm
of
glad people do it. I'm so thankful people do it, but it is not my calling.
Well, lack of sunlight is probably one of the biggest causes of health issues nowadays, and just staring at screens all day.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially before bed.
Blue light, it's the silent killer.
Yeah. Are they friendly?
Yeah, they're mostly lazy. One of them there is named Penelope, and a friend of mine had her, and they had to move, and the new place they were moving wouldn't let them have the pig, so we took it. The other one is Lucy. She just kind of outgrew her home, so we get calls to take animals, so we're not like a pig rescue or nothing, but we just, you know, part of what we do is about the welfare of the animals, so we like animals. We collect pigs, we got some geese over there, we got a few little ducks. This property was where we initially started, and we built all that back there for, you know, we had different ages of chickens and each different one running around out there, but it has gotten to the point where, like, this is only like 3/4 of an acre. That back there is employee parking. There's no parking in the front most of the time. We built all of the infrastructure here for the processing and everything, so there's nothing left but for a few pets. But we have 60 acres or so of lease properties where we have all of our animals at.
So you used to have the animals here, and now you have them elsewhere.
Yeah.
And you just process them here.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's the volume has gotten to the point where that's the only way we can do it.
Yeah.
You know, we're cutting 5-6 days a week in there.
How long have you guys been here?
Since 2015. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it's been that long.
Yeah. And what made you get into this, or what made you want to open it?
I didn't really intentionally like start a business. I retired in 2016. And so in 2015, I basically set it up kind of like a little hobby. I like to cook a lot. I know you like to cook.
Yeah.
So, you know, ingredients are a big deal.
Yeah.
And I was in the food service industry for 35 years, packing private label for all the big distributors and stuff. And I know a little bit about the supply chain and the quality and stuff like that. So I'm like, well, I got plenty of time on my hands. I'm gonna raise some high quality Berkshire pigs. I'm gonna do some really, you know, fancy and nice chickens, and just kind of grow my own stuff, you know, a little bit. Before I retired, my wife and I were running like 4 businesses that we had, and it was just, we were dying pretty much a little bit every day. So we wanted to disconnect from all of that as much as possible. So this was supposed to be just like our little compound to stay away from the world, more or less.
Yeah.
But as you can see, the world has moved in around us. And so I got bored about 6 months in, you know. My grandkids were in school all the time, couldn't hang out with them. My brother was working, all my friends were still working. I just got bored. So I said, well, I'm gonna see about raising a few chickens to sell. We're already raising them, so let's do a few to sell.
Yeah.
Started selling a few, and then I was watching YouTube videos and stuff. I was selling them live at that time. You're just selling a few, like I was raising chickens from eggs and sell them to like the feed stores and stuff around here. I didn't realize that I could get a license and start doing meat birds. It was pretty simple, really. So I'm watching all these Joel Salatin videos and these other guys on there with their chicken tractors. And I'm like, well, I can build some of those. So I just started doing it, and it took me probably a year and a half before I was able actually to sell any chickens. 10 years ago, people weren't really into this as much.
Yeah.
And it was brutal. I almost quit because I'm like, I was just dumping money into it. Money, just raising these chickens. And then I ran out of freezer space to put them and all.
Yeah.
And then I got kind of a little bit lucky, I guess. We just figured some people showed me how to use Facebook and Instagram a little bit. And then we were able to reach the people, and it just kind of took off from there. Then when COVID happened, we were one of the only places around that still had meat. We never ran out of meat through the whole deal. And we kept most of those customers. We just got slammed.
Yeah.
It was 7 days a week, just people just lining up at the street to get meat, And since then, we've just been we've doubled almost every year since then.
That's
So
awesome.
it's just been nuts.
And people nowadays especially are really willing to pay a few extra bucks to get the best quality, especially with the distrust of the food industry in supermarkets, especially now.
For sure.
But yeah, that's awesome.
I found out basically we have several different markets that we kind of tap into. We have a lot of people that are here in this area really from like Eastern Europe. They're used to a different type of food system. They don't really care for the grocery store food system anyway. And this is really feels like home to them. They can get fresh meat and it's not from the grocery store. Yeah. And this is something they really love. We have your basic people that are trying to disconnect from the regular food system and get as organic or local as they can. We have a surprising amount of people that really come here just because it's the best quality that they can find. It's really, they don't really have an ethical dog in the fight. It's the best meat
Just
that they
taste
can
it better,
find.
Yeah, and I mean, as someone who likes to cook, just the taste alone is worth it.
Yeah.
But then the health benefits, more nutrient dense, and buying it from people that actually know what they're doing, care about what they're doing, it's a triple whammy. Grass-fed, grass-finished versus grain-fed. Talk to me just about the differences, flavor, health, anything like that.
So there are some differences. Let's start with flavor. To me, in my opinion, and most people that I talk to, grass-finished beef has more of a beef flavor. It's, a lot of times you can get conventional beef that's grain-finished. It really doesn't have much flavor. And I know the people that we work with on the grass-fed and finished beef, they did a lot of processing, and at one time they did both grass-finished and grain-finished. They actually had a much higher quality and better product from the grass-finished that they did. Grass-finished kind of got a bad rap years back when there wasn't as much technology involved, there wasn't as much breeding. So people are basically now doing grass-finished cattle with Angus and Angus Wagyu crosses and stuff like that. So the quality and flavor of it has actually gotten better tremendously. And so you could probably take one of the steaks that we have, like a ribeye or something, put it next to a conventional, and people are gonna pick it over the conventional for the flavor of it.
A lot of people too will say that grass-fed beef is more gamey.
I've heard that. I haven't experienced that here. I think some of that comes from the way that it's processed and handled. So I'm not throwing shade on anybody, but there's a lot of those smaller, like custom exempt places and stuff that harvest, like you buy a whole freezer beef or something from a farmer and he sends it over to the little processor. A lot of them don't have the quality or refrigeration controls that a larger place would have. So the meat will, it can get warm and cool several times. It's still edible and it's not unsafe or anything.
Gotcha.
But the hanging process, a lot of these places will have their custom exempt. So they'll have beef hanging in there. They may have pork hanging in there. They may even have certain times of the year deer hanging in there with the beef. The beef will pick up whatever flavors are in the air. So sometimes that can have something to do with all of those things will affect the flavor of the meat.
Another question, and this is very common, the marbling. I'll post a picture, I'll say 100% grass-fed steak, beautifully marbled, but someone will be like, no way, that's grass-fed.
Yeah. So two things. One, it's the genetics. Like I mentioned, this is not your old backyard cracker cattle that they call them. A lot of people would sell those little cracker cattle, the Florida cattle.
Yeah.
It's like eating shoe leather. But One of the cool things about working with Fort McCoy is it's continuously USDA inspected. It has all of the humane certifications. The plant was designed by Temple Grandin.
Yeah.
So she's like the #1 authority on humane treatment of animals. The biggest thing about it is the breeding, but second of all, the product is checked by the USDA. They actually check the stomach contents of the cattle when they come through to make sure that it is grass-fed, grass-finished, or they kick the cattle. I mean, like the penalty for running the wrong cattle through one time and getting caught is like, you can't run no more.
Wow.
I mean, it's very, very stiff. I mean, I can't say who or what who it is, but I do know of an example. Somebody ran the cattle through there claiming it as grass-finished beef. The USDA found some corn kernels in one of the stomachs. They were issued a stop order on that, and they were no longer allowed to send beef through that processor, the farmer.
That's a good thing, I guess, for the consumer, at least.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are ways, there's always a way to cheat the system. Now, you don't have that same control if you're going to, say, what we call a custom exempt butcher. If you buy a single cow from Farmer Bob and he takes it over to Joe's butcher shop and they harvest it and everything there, USDA's not there, Joe's not checking the stomach or whatever, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you're buying it from somebody that you trust, most guys that are doing this, 99.9% are doing it for reasons other than money, so you really don't have to worry about it too much.
Gotcha.
But there can be a dramatic difference in the marbling of grass-finished beef between the genetics and the makeup. It makes up the grass that they eat. There are certain types of grass that have better nutritional content than other types of grass. So a lot of these farmers are, they have veterinarians on site. They work with the University of Florida Agriculture Department. They've developed new types of grasses and different types of nutrition. So it's like anything else. The longer we do it, the better we get at it.
Yeah. What would you say the most underrated cut of steak is that you enjoy?
Ooh, there's a couple of them. My favorite is definitely a sirloin flap.
Yeah.
Some people call it flap meat, but we use it to make fajitas out of. We use it to make a carne asada with, but it's got a lot of marbling in it. It's got kind of a chucky type of a flavor. And if you grill it off and then you cut it against the grain, it's very tender. You can fillet it open real thin and make little minute steaks or ranch steaks out of them. Those are great with eggs for breakfast in the morning, and they quick cooker than bacon,
Nice. Is that the ranch steak you have in there?
Yeah,
That's what that is?
That's my favorite. Me and the girls back there, we eat a ton of it.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, I got one in my fridge right now that'll be tonight or tomorrow night's dinner. And then we get some of that too in Wagyu from Sakura, because we sell a little bit of it's holistically raised Wagyu. That stuff is it's like eating butter on a plate. I mean, it's so good. So,
the marbling in that is crazy.
Yeah, so ranch steak's my favorite. One of the customer favorites is actually like a chuck steak. Chuck eye steak, if you take one of those guys and throw it in a sous vide bag for a little while, and it's like eating a ribeye.
I do a lot of slow cooked chucks. Tell me a little bit about the game meats. Like, where do you get that?
So the bison, we partner with a couple out in Nebraska. It's called Central Nebraska Bison, and Kendra and her husband and her father, they've been doing bison since 1968.
Wow.
It's a small family farm. It's not a big commercial deal because bison is done on a huge commercial scale and feedlotted just like cattle are too, but a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
A lot of it comes from Canada, come from up north, and so there's a lot of feedlot deal with bison because bison's a real popular meat these days. But we don't. Ours comes from they're out on pasture, not crowded. They replenish the herd from on site, so they're not buying bison and then selling them. Their bison are having babies and they're raising them up. So it's kind of an old school way that they do it. The wild boar, we actually have a farm real close to us here. We're kind of like partners with them. We do a lot of processing for them and stuff. It's called Shogun Farms in Tampa. It's a great program. It's USDA inspected at the farm and when harvested. We're taking wild boar from the wild that have been trapped. We put them there in a quarantine. They get inspected to make sure they're parasite free. They feed them out with local produce that would be wasted, local dairy that would be wasted from the dairies, a lot of spent grains from all the local breweries. So they're corn and soy free. They don't eat any of those items. And we're solving several different problems. We're getting rid of waste that could go somewhere else and just be completely wasted. turning it into delicious meat. And we're pulling wild feral hogs out of the ecosystem because they're very damaging. I mean, there's a big problem with wild boar. You could have 10 places in Florida doing this and selling all they could sell, and you still would have a hard time making a dent in the wild boar population. Wow. A wild boar sow can have up to 3 litters a year, each one with 10 to 14 piglets. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the quality of the meat's amazing. It's like a lot of people don't know that these wild boar, are descendants of Ibericos from Spain. Hernando de Soto brought some over here when they came over they turned them loose so that they would have something to eat while they were over here.
Yeah.
And through the years, they have inbred and mingled with domestic hogs that have escaped or whatever. But a lot of them, most of them that we catch and fatten out, they maintain the same body characteristics as an Iberico. If you've seen one of these guys, fully grown, when they're in the wild, they get kind of that razorback look to them. But if you take that same hog and you put him over here and let him, in like a hog pen area, and you feed them food, and within 90 days they'll eat out of your hand, and their whole conformation has changed.
Wow.
So then they start to get a big fat barrel in the middle and these little peg legs, and they look just like an Iberico.
Yeah. And that is some good stuff.
Yeah, they're delicious.
Yeah. Do you sell mostly ground wild boar? Do you ever get do you sell like ribs and stuff like that?
Yeah,
for the
we
boar?
do. Yeah, we do. We don't sell a lot of it. I think it's just because people just don't know about it. A lot of people are afraid that it's going to be gamey and tough.
Yeah.
It's exactly the opposite. Wow. The meat is nice and tender. It almost has a bacony flavor to it.
It's somewhat lean, the boar, right? Compared to pork?
In the wild, they are.
Yeah.
Once you put them, on the farm, and you start feeding them for 90 days, they don't have to work for their food no more.
Okay. So
so then they
get a little fat.
And with the Iberico genes in them, they will put on a fat cap that's 4 inches thick on a 200-pound hog.
Wow.
They get to where they gain weight and fat just like that, but it's intramuscular and it's on the outside. So I mean, it's just like having Ibericos. It's really strange. But,
I'm gonna get some of that before I go. Another question, just like limitations with grass finished beef. Like, is it a lot harder to produce in larger quantities?
It is. It is to a certain extent. So it's a function of how much property you have.
Yeah.
Typically, grass-finished cattle grow slower. I could be wrong on my conventional facts because that's not my area of expertise. But I believe most conventional cattle are harvested at about maybe 12 months of age, 12 to 14 at the most. Most grass-finished cattle are harvested like 18 to 24 months.
Oh, wow.
So it takes them a lot longer to get to the same size.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's feasible to do. I mean, there's a big movement going on right now throughout the country, out west and everywhere that has farmland. There's a lot of conventional farmers that are rethinking, and they're like, the conventional method is we're going broke, conventional farming. And they're understanding that, yes, it's more expensive to do this, but there's a higher return on the investment. So it's becoming more and more common that some of the cattle ranchers out west and stuff are turning more to a grass-finished model, or at least a pastured model over a CAFO type of thing because of the economics of it. So that's a good thing.
And something else very common is like regenerative agriculture. Like, would you say all grass-finished beef is regenerative, and just what is the differences there?
So I would say so. A lot of people have different definitions of regenerative. Some people, feel like you need to have all the different animals in the cycle, but you really don't. I mean, just putting cattle on pasture, rotating them properly, and stewarding the land the proper way makes it regenerative. These cattle are going to eat the grass. They're going to fertilize the grass, and you rotate them to fresh pasture all the time. It reduces or eliminates the need for any kind of vaccines or antibiotics because they're not confined. So it takes longer to grow them out, but that land, if you rotate them properly, that land comes back stronger every year. Plus you're building layers of soil. That's every cycle that goes through there makes that soil a little bit better, so the grass grows a little bit bigger. And if you're looking at it from a carbon standpoint, every inch taller the grass goes, the more carbon it's going to pull from the atmosphere.
Yeah, and the government, they want to limit beef because it's bad for the environment.
That just depends on which paid-for study you look at. You may be able to make that argument if you're looking at the big CAFO places, and those kind of things are pretty bad for the environment. and they do eat a lot of corn and soy that has to be grown somewhere. But the other argument against that is that the nutrition that is in that beef is converted by your body at a much more efficient rate. So, you know, this isn't the exact ratio, but like, you know, if you eat an ounce of meat, you might have to eat 10 heads of broccoli to get the same nutrition, you know. So
100%.
it's just a matter of how you want to look at it, you know. But the grass finish model is, you can't argue that the grass finish model isn't better.
Yeah, and then
You
they
just-
push for
it's just not valid.
for fake meat made in labs or factories and claim that's better for the environment.
How much energy does it take to make that?
Yeah, I know last time I saw you, you mentioned something about like some of the subscriptions, like ButcherBox, things like that, and how maybe it's not as good as people think.
Like I say, I don't want to put no shade on nobody, but I give you information, things that I know from, like, if I see something on a website, I'll send the guys a message and ask them, hey, where's this, you know, where's this from? Like, you know, there's one that they sell a wild Oregon blend type of thing or whatever. They don't tell you on the website where it comes from, so I reached out and asked them where it came from, and they responded truthfully. It was imported, but people don't. One of the other problems that a lot of local meat is facing today is cheaper imports coming in, and they're not being labeled as imported product.
So the raw milk, like, have you seen a big increase in sales over the past year or two?
Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons people want it. A lot of people want it for more, you know, for better gut health and nutrition. You know, a lot of people are just intrigued by raw milk. What does real raw product
milk.
taste like? You know, and it's definitely got a lot more nutrition. So yeah, it's been crazy, really. You know?
Yeah, it's very popular online, and I know a bunch of people too that told me they were lactose intolerant, and they started drinking raw milk. Their eczema went away, like all these allergies and things.
Yeah, I get the same thing. I had a lady in here yesterday that the interesting thing about the eczema too is I did not know this, but apparently eating soy-free and corn-free meat, like chicken and eggs and those kind of things, especially the eggs. The lady, she had a little 2-3-year-old girl covered in eczema. Through seeing doctors and experimentation and things like that, they figured out that her eczema symptoms get reduced when she's soy and corn free.
And that's something too that I think a lot of people don't realize. It's not only the food you're eating, it's the food's food. And that's really what is making the nutritional value of what we're eating.
People that don't understand, a lot of them are worried about safety of the product. You really don't have to worry about that. I mean, raw milk is pretty safe if it's done in a sanitary environment. The people that we work with actually are licensed by the state with food permits. You still can't label it for human consumption, but it has to be done by law under food grade conditions.
Okay.
So everything is sanitized like it's supposed to be. The cows are cleaned. It's done in a good environment. They rapid chill it in a quick chiller. So all of those things reduce the negative bacteria. I mean, just a quick Google search on the CDC or anywhere else, you're far safer drinking raw milk than you are eating lettuce.
I mean
by
like,
multiples.
Yeah, it's like 1 in a billion chance of getting sick from raw milk. People are getting sick from romaine all the time, but you don't see the same fear mongering.
Yeah, it's like, to me, it's kind of ridiculous because I come from that side of the business, you know, running processing plants and stuff. I'm constantly updated from the CDC and the FDA on current recalls, what they're for. The average citizen has no idea how much fresh produce and meat gets recalled every year. It's nuts.
Yeah. Another question someone asked on Twitter was pesticides in the food that the animals are eating, and has that ever been an issue or something that you've dealt with?
For me, no.
Yeah.
For conventionally produced meat, they have to spray. Well, the other thing too, I mean, the grains and stuff they're eating have been bug sprayed.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pull up any Google search really easy and find there's lots of different products that are tested for pesticides and different types of residue, like Roundup and stuff. And I mean, it's in everything. You find the residues in everything. So I mean, it's something we don't have to worry about, but it's definitely there.
How you see the future of like the farming, grass finished meat? Obviously, the industry has changed a lot and becoming a lot more popular.
Yeah.
Anything that you see that like over the next 5-10 years will change, or?
I think it's going to get. I think the market is just going to be totally increased for it overall as people start to feel the health benefits from it. And you know, almost all of my business these days comes from word of mouth, people telling other people about it. And we see so many new people on a daily basis, it's just nuts.
Yeah.
My bigger concern though is that we don't have, this is not like a knock on the younger generation. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there are people my age, we're in our 50s and 60s, and we're getting ready to retire. I'm in a good position. I have some young people that are wanting to step in and take over and go forward, but a lot of people don't. There's still the issue around the nation where farmers of both kinds, both conventional and doing what we do, farmers are retiring. They're selling their properties. Their kids don't want to do it. We're going to run into, at some point, maybe sooner than we think, we're going to run into some food issues with farmers disappearing. But the commercial supply chain still is not in great shape. A lot of people, they see stuff at the shelves of the grocery store, but they don't know what goes on behind the scenes in distribution. Trucking is a mess. Trying to get product moved around across the country is very difficult, very expensive right now, and it's only getting worse. It depends on which study you look at, but we're millions short cattle in the United States over previous years, and demand has increased. So there's more crunches coming at some point. You got the same problem with chicken. Now all commercial chicken has gone back to using antibiotics, but not for human antibiotics. What does that mean? What is that? There's no list of approved antibiotics. There's no approved tests. I mean, it's a joke. You know, but even at that, there's people that want to step in and take over for their retiring parents and grandparents. Just nobody wants to do it, you know.
All right, let's do some shopping. This thing is gorgeous. We're gonna start with some of the frozen stuff. I am interested in this elk stew meat. Make a nice elk stew with bone broth. I really wanna try this, this wild boar. I've been wanting to get flank steak to make ropa vieja. Look at these Wagyu strips. Look at that marbling. I wanna get something with a bone in. Wagyu, ground sirloin, turkey breakfast sausage is good. Nice T-bone. It's bone marrow butter, bone marrow, garlic, and rosemary. Unbelievable. And now I want to get some of these ranch steaks that he was really hyping up. Very paper thin. Do a nice carne asada marinade. All right, we got 0.4, 0.8, 1.5, 2 pounds. Should be good for now. Look at this chuck. Oh my God. This is gorgeous. Definitely getting one of these. This is one of my favorites too. Sirloin tips, very lean, and it cooks very quickly. I like doing like a little fried rice or something like this, a little marinade, but super convenient to cook. Which I will get some Italian sausage. Wow, this blade steak for the pork looks great.
It's fantastic.
Wow. It's pork. Look at that marbling.
Yeah, it's a cross cut of the Boston butt. You just take the Boston butt and cut
wow.
steaks out of it. Yeah.
Coming soon to an online store near you. Yogurt, cream, goat milk, and the regular milk. Look at that cream on top.